It's so great to see so many people out here today, and welcome to the kickoff of Nashville Next. My name's Andrea Klein-Thomas. I'm a reporter with News Channel 5, and I'm really just so excited about being here today and being a part of what we're about to start. For the next 2 years, your input is vital in creating a plan for Nashville's future. We're here to start the conversation about what you want Nashville to look like in 2040. And I know when you hear the year 2040, it just seems like so far away, but it really will be here before you know it. When the plan's complete, it will address areas like arts and culture, economic development, education, the environment, transportation, diversity, and public safety. This is about envisioning the type of community we want for ourselves. But not just that, about envisioning the community we want for our kids and grandkids. But before we get started, first, please stand as we welcome the Creve Hall Scouts who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you guys so much for that, and don't forget to get those cookies. I've had too many myself. All right, so today we're here to launch a Nashville Next planning process, and we want to highlight one of the features that makes this city so unique, and of course I'm talking about our arts community. So I'm pleased to invite Benjamin Smith to the stage. He's the Executive Director of Southern Word. As he comes up, we're going to show you a video from the Nashville Civic Design Center that features some of Southern Word's amazing poets.
When I was a child, like a child, I created thoughts. My mind danced with my hands around sands in the sandbox, fingers molding skyscraper tissue in architectural bliss. If I could divide the design, I would dig so much deeper, create pyramids from ancient instructions, a city built from concrete feeling so real you could touch them, function and fashion. Two worlds as one. Streets paving the way to a healthy populace, a pathway through the mud. Rivers in a time of drought, risers in a time of flood.
There's a difference between where you sleep and home. Right off of where 8th and Wedgewood would meet, we would cover every inch of the street by sundown. I just sleep in Antioch. My home has cold feet and warm souls.
8th and Wedgewood, my favorite street to cross. Light traffic, old skies, familiar faces, silk pavement under your shoes, black tar and the scent of blues strumming away at the Douglas Corner Cafe.
Inglewood, wire fences run through the parks late at night. No one really has a front lawn of their own, but neighbors connect through fresh-cut grass.
Belmont Boulevard, Java in my hand, inhaling steam, sweat, sweet flowers, and exhaust. Cyclists share streets with monstrous buses, a silent partnership between man and machine.
The only transportation I have is my feet, and the only place I have to walk is by the train tracks. But we are going someplace.
We are going someplace.
We are going someplace.
We are going someplace. Slowly moving.
Passing graffiti signs and buildings.
Stepping over earthquake sidewalks.
Beyond rundown buildings and upside down hazard signs.
We are moving forward.
We see peace as a function, virtue as a patience, the courage it takes to walk over paving stakes as the signal.
If we make plans, lines on paper become streets. Words on pages become high-rises.
If we make plans, allow them to be for the improvement of man, not just men in big wigs and evil genius mind frames. Effectively incorporate change in the blueprint, guided steps, deliberate movement.
If we hold hands, we connect ourselves.
If we make plans, we correct ourselves.
And when we conquer thresholds,
We better ourselves. Generations humming in the silence of the Cumberland.
So that was a project of the Nashville Civic Design Center. They were kind enough to invite our poets to participate in that. We are primarily an education organization, but last spring we did a series of performances called Future Break. And we invited over 65 writers, songwriters, poets, playwrights, actors to write about the future of Nashville, to write the future of Nashville into existence. And we did 6 performances. One was right here in this auditorium, one was at the Frist, one was at Cheekwood, and we did 4 at the Dark Horse Theater. And in executing this creation grant, which was sponsored by the Metro Nashville Arts Commission, it was our hope to be part of a conversation exactly like this. So thank you, Rick, for inviting some of the writers. 2 of the writers are going to present from that series right now. The first is Alicia Hamer. She's a Nashville native, Fisk alum, and has been involved in community and professional theater for the past 10 years. And the second is Ryn Willix, who's just wrapping up her high school education, has lived in Nashville for 15 years, and has applied to like 40 colleges for next year, and is waiting to find out anxiously who will have her. I'm sure a bunch will. So I will leave it to them to share their stories. I just hope as we plan that we stay in touch with the stories and the realities of Nashvillians from all backgrounds. So as the city grows and thrives economically, everyone can benefit from that. So I'm going to invite Alicia up here, but I'm not going to do it unless she gets a lot of love. So I'm going to say her name, and you're going to clap and cheer, because hopefully in the next 25 years we'll have a lot of love in Nashville. So we can start that right now. And if you don't give her a lot of love, she'll just stay sitting right there. And she'll be there 25 years later if you don't show her any love, okay? So please give a warm welcome to Alicia Hamer.
I first met you when I was almost 2 years old. You welcomed me with opened arms, with tree-lined streets, with friendly faces, and a little yellow house to call my own. You gave me buttercups in the spring, and a park full of swings and monkey bars by day, and rumors of the unmentionable at night, right at the end of my street. You gave me wonderfully windy days that let me fly my Mr. T kite as high as the clouds. You gave me snow fights with my brother. You gave me friends, Naima, Jamila, Sabrina. We enjoyed simple games of hide and go seek and simple joys of running for the popsicle truck, feasting on candy and honeysuckles as we lay in the shelter of your shade trees. You taught me creative expression at Pauline's School of Dance. You showed me healthy competition at Melrose Lanes. You entertained me with your fireworks. Fiery red, brilliant blue, and bright yellow sparks danced outside my windows every time the sounds won a game. You gave me unspeakable joy at Fair Park and mouth-watering sweets from Becker's and Miss Ann's sweet shop. You were beautiful. Your corner stores, your understated charm was home to me. I see how you've grown and how you've changed. Trendy coffee shops replace small, humble businesses. Colorful, prefabricated buildings are where quaint little homes used to be. You have a new name, new friends, skyscrapers, restaurants, and boutiques. You're the place to be now, and everyone wants you. Your once abandoned lots are now prime real estate. Let's tear down the history and build more condos. Let's move all the old people out, flip their houses, and move all the new people in at triple the price. It's hard to recognize you now. I can hardly afford to hang out with you anymore. Although I'm happy for your success, I hope you don't forget about us. The little kids that grew up with you, played with you, spilled blood and tears on your sidewalks, learned from you and loved you with everything that we had. Continue to flourish as I know you will. Continue to expand and embrace new people and new things. I moved away from you over 15 years ago, but wherever I go in the world, and however much you change and slowly become foreign to me, a piece of my heart will always be in South Nashville, the very first place I called home. Thank you.
My city never wakes, never jumps out of bed bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Everyone meals about like zombies, waiting for their next coffee fix, shot of espresso, sugar high. Kids in abandoned YMCA locker rooms shoot up like gas prices. The price for peace is too high, but so are our minds. We live with heavy eyelids, too exhausted to look at this cradle we've made to utter our last breaths in. You call this a city? I call it a deathbed. Curses spill from TV speakers, spew from speeding cars, trickle down from radio towers, and sing us to sleep like lullabies. I will wake. Fill my lungs with sprouting thoughts and oxygen. Stretch construction site cranes from under floral bed sheets and kiss the sun with my squinting headlights. Today I will tap out a story more epic than Odysseus could fathom. Bend my bones into a budding destiny. I will not stand for ignorance or sit for the idleness settling in my toes. Today's the future you avoided yesterday, so let's make tomorrow soar from a closed fist and lazy eye looking back on past glory. Our future can shine brighter than neon vacancy signs. We are Music City, so let us pluck out compositions that create hurricanes in bellies, spill possibilities from opening eyes. We are more than just country music in the Parthenon, roller derby, floods, and a really good hockey team. We are proud, intelligent, a community of promise that can withstand mental slumber. A city that can plant gardens where healthy children will grow and feed the country brilliance. Together, we can build a future of clean air and clear heads and sing a nation awake.
I want to thank Southern Word, our future as we kind of look forward. I'm Rick Bernhardt, Director of Metropolitan Planning Department, and in charge of kind of this process as we go forward with a lot of help and with a lot of critical people as we go forward. I want to thank each and every one of you for attending this kickoff, and this is only the start of this process. One thing that's interesting this year, Metro is celebrating 50 years of metropolitan government, and if you think back 50 years, The Middle Tennessee region consisted primarily of Davidson County, and the core of that region was basically inside the inner loop. If we look out just 25 years from now, we're looking at 1 million more people than we have now. We're looking at a region that's 10, 11, 12, 13 counties. A region at the core of that region is going to be all of Davidson County, and all the developable portions of Davidson County. So how we want to grow is something that this process is intended to kind of ferret out and describe. And we want that to happen. It can only happen successfully if you are engaged. It's going to be a very different community in 2040 than it is today. So how we get there is up to you. We are the facilitators of the process, but you are the determinants of the process. This process will go on for probably about the next 2 years. Heavy citizen involvement is expected over the next 18 months, and then we'll kind of try, have we heard you right, and have we got this right, and as we present this. It's going to take your involvement. We are starting, one of the things that Southern Word was intended to do was to illustrate part of the broadness of the art community in Davidson County, in this area. We have a very, very rich art community. And each of these, we've got 6 additional presentations scheduled over the next several months, and each of those will have a different segment of our art community to try to inspire us as we go forward to think about what we have and the richness of what we have and where we go. And hopefully you will be able to be part of that. Let me just start off today by saying we have a very, very special guest today. Our presenter, Governor Parris Glendening, is one of the national, if not the international, experts on growth management. He was actually the first governor to put in place a statewide growth management system. He has actually been a thinker, a teacher, and a doer in terms of everything that he has believed. He is currently president of Smart Growth America's Leadership Institute and the Governor's Institute on Community Design. In these roles, he travels the world and makes presentations on issues of community growth and sustainability. He was the governor of Maryland from 1995 to 2003. And he was a leader nationally as I mentioned, in the area of smart growth as he moved forward in that area at that time. Very difficult time of growth in Maryland as they moved to protect their environmental resources. But if you go back, and kind of being someone from Florida and really a Gator, he grew up in Florida, but he actually went to Tallahassee, Florida State, where he got his doctorate in government and policy, and taught for 27 years at the University of Maryland. And decided, I guess, at that time that, it's one thing to teach about it, it's a whole other thing to do it. And so he ventured into elective office where he was elected to the county commission, and then ultimately was the county executive, and then ultimately was the governor of the state of Maryland. He was twice named Public Official of the Year by Governing Magazine, first time as the county executive and second as the governor. And he has been a real inspiration. He has been someone that has held us accountable as we go forward, and someone that really challenges us to think about how do we build a sustainable community in Nashville and Davidson County. And with that, I'd like to welcome Governor Parris Glendening.
Rick, thank you very, very much. Let me first say, before I even look at my prepared comments, how extraordinarily exciting the enthusiasm level was, the commitment level, the emotions that I was hearing outside. I have participated in a number of these activities across the country. And I will tell you, I think that was about as enthusiastic start as I've ever seen. And then to walk in here, And then to walk in here and see, and I have not seen this in dozens and dozens of other activities, the performance by the Civic Design Center and the artistic setting for this is truly unique. And I mean, I have been in other countries and in other parts of this country on this, and I've never seen anything as well done. So congratulations to you. It makes it even more of an honor for me to be here. Let me first thank Rick for his kind words, although after about the fifth sentence, it starts to sound like a dry run for an obituary. But in any case, Rick, thank you for that so very, very much. I'm excited to be here with Mayor Dean. Has the mayor arrived yet? He's coming. But with Mayor Dean, and I thank both the mayor and Rick Bernhardt and his team at Metropolitan Planning Department for inviting me to participate in this exciting moment. These are indeed very exciting times for Nashville. The region is growing. Downtown has become a vibrant place, not only to hear live music, but also to live. And as you probably know, you've received recognition after recognition in recent months. Condé Nast, for example, recently named Nashville as one of the 5 hot cities to visit in 2013. And you were right up there with Amsterdam in Europe, with Seoul, South Korea, and many others. GQ just proclaimed you as being Nowville. And every Wednesday night, households across the country are seeing the new Nashville on ABC. And by the way, as someone from Maryland, and when Baltimore was the focus of a program called The Wire, you know, there were mixed reactions about that, and I can understand this from Nashville as well, but it is a moment of pride, I believe. Nashville has come a long way. There's been a lot of change over the decade, and there will be a lot more in the coming years. As the mayor and the Metropolitan Planning Department understand, you have an important voice in that coming future. And this forum is a critical step in shaping the next Nashville. As you all know better than I, Nashville has been growing and is projected to continue to grow. Over the next 25 years, almost another 200,000 people will call Davidson County their home. This coming growth demands very important decisions. You must decide now how you want Nashville to be in 2040. Now, I know that the challenge that you face may at first seem daunting, but let me just say this. As I travel across the country, working with groups just like you, and give speeches in places like the upper Midwest, where they've lost population in recent years, where they continue to lose jobs, where people are leaving vacant homes in abandoned neighborhoods and boarded up storefronts, or in parts of the West and the South and the Sun Belt, where the housing crisis has hit communities so very, very high. When I think of these communities where I've been, I can tell you that they would, in a moment, trade all of their problems for one day of the future that you have. We must remember that cities do not develop by happenstance. Everyday decisions are made about where investments are to be, about who is served by those investments, and what those investments will look like. That's why planning today is essential to ensure that all of these decisions support your vision of what you want for the next Nashville. And I must emphasize, it is not ours as speakers, it is not the mayor's, it is not the planning department's. It is your vision that will guide where this wonderful community goes. To understand the coming challenges and to ensure that you plan properly for them, you do need to understand the significant demographic changes that are happening. The demographic makeup of our country is in the midst of a massive shift. As you probably know from looking at your own family and your own friends, the nation and Nashville is aging. Some people have started to call this trend the coming senior tsunami. By the year 2030, nearly 1 in 5 Americans are expected to be over the age of 65. The other large demographic change comes from a much younger cohort referred to as Generation Y, or more popularly known as the millennials. This group, ranging in age from 18 to 30 years old, includes 91 million people. Now think about that for a second. 91 million people, that is actually 10 million more than there were baby boomers. And think about the impact that the baby boomers have had on this country. These changing demographics are starting to have an effect on the housing market, on our economy, and on how we build communities. One way that the housing market is being affected is the size of the households. We are moving away from a country of predominantly married households with children. In 1960, around half of our country consisted of households usually married with children. That number was down to 33% by 2000 and is almost certain to be around 28% by the year 2025. Or another way to look at it on the other side of the equation, households without children represent about half of our population in 1960. That number was up to 67% by 2000 and will likely be well over 70% by 2025. Think of that for a second in terms of your own projections and thoughts about this community. Nearly 70% of households are no longer the traditional families upon which current plans and development patterns are set. Nashville and the surrounding regions are experiencing exactly the same shift. Projections look very similar for here over the next 25 years as they do nationwide. In fact, Davidson County is projected to have even a slightly lower household size than the national average. Now, what does this mean for housing? As household size shrinks, there is demand for a wider range of housing options. The millennials, like the older generations, singles and couples with no children or few children, are looking for housing to meet their needs as well. You can see this trend here in Nashville, where condos and older close-in neighborhoods have seen a resurgence in interest. Places like the Gulch and East Nashville, for example. But a vast amount of the housing that we have built over the past several decades, the American dream of the 1970s and the 80s and the 90s, simply does not meet these demands. We're starting to see a drastic mismatch between what people want and what we have built. As this chart shows, our focus on procuring large lot homes means that we will need to build more attached homes and smaller lot size homes. We're not only realizing a mismatch in demand, but we're also realizing that we can no longer afford the old growth picture, where moving up was the same thing as moving out further and further from our existing cities. We cannot afford it as taxpayers or as homeowners. For taxpayers, this growth pattern means we are paying higher and higher taxes to cover infrastructure, maintenance, and service costs created by sprawl. Sprawling development patterns create a system where there are always more roads to build and to maintain, more utilities to put in, more sewer lines to lay, and there are longer distances for ambulances to travel and for police to protect us and for so many other services. For homeowners, this growth pattern results in greater household cost. Those living in large homes far from job centers spend larger percentages of their salary on gasoline and energy for their cars, to heat their homes in the winter, to cool them in the summer, and they spend more time getting to work in the morning and home in the afternoon. With fuel and energy unpredictable, these costs are likely to increase over the future. Let me tell you a quick story. I was asked to speak several years ago when the gas price for the first time went up to $4 a gallon. Some of you may call those years where we were reassured that was a temporary blip and would never occur again. I was asked to speak in Martinsburg, West Virginia. The interesting thing about Martinsburg, West Virginia, is it is actually, because there's so much sprawl in the nation's capital area, considered part of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And it was also one of the most booming areas at this time. When I went up there to speak, though, and gas was $4 a gallon, we got some interesting information from the local bankers organization. And that is that over 80% of the people taking out mortgages to buy these jobs in these neighborhoods actually worked either in Baltimore or in Washington, D.C. And they had a round-trip commute of 140 miles a day on the average. Now, I asked them in there, how many of you look like you're going to be spending as much for your mortgage as you, for your energy costs, your gasoline costs, as your mortgage? And over half of the hands went up. Now, that was at $4 a gallon, and you got to realize what the projections are for the future. The change in housing demand is not just about the size of housing or about its cost. People are increasingly choosing to live in places that offer them easy access to their work, that feature restaurants, retail, and transit, and that have a real sense of community. This trend is not only true for the millennials who want to live in sort of hip downtown lofts and places like that, but also for seniors. Today, the largest majority of seniors are not retiring to the beach or moving into nursing homes. What they choose to do is age in place, particularly to age in their own community. And by the way, many of these seniors are still very active and relatively affluent as well, and they want to enjoy life as much as a retire. But there's another big change going on with this aging in place. 600,000 people over the age of 70 stop driving every year. Now, 50 years ago, this was not such a big deal because seniors normally aged in their own extended family home. But now we know that that does not work, and they are finding that they become restricted and immobile the second they turn in their keys. I might add, by the way, I think I was behind one of those seniors on the way to the airport the other day coming down here. But the demand for these places is particularly high for the millennials, who are choosing where they want to live before they choose or look for a job. 64% of the people in the most recent survey in college graduates, 64% decide where they want to live and then go look for a job there. Now, when I was getting my doctorate at Florida State, I asked where were the jobs? And I went up to New York for an interview at a conference, and I got invited to join the faculty at the University of Maryland, and I went to the University of Maryland to teach because that's where the jobs were. They just don't do it anymore. Now they decide where they want to live, and they go from there. This is a slide of Boise, Idaho. And the reason that's up there, I was just there for the first time recently, but the reason that's up there is my son Raymond, who's now 33, but he called me about 4 or 5 years ago, and he was working with the Democratic Governors Association, and he said, "Dad, have you ever been to Boise, Idaho?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "You know, I really like this place. I've been thinking about it. I could live in a community like this." Now, since then, he has started a new company, a social media company, currently located in Washington, D.C., but at some point, he will be looking where does he want to expand his company. And the most interesting thing is places like Boise, Idaho have already crossed a very important line because the millennial generation is saying, I could live there. After that, it almost becomes competitive and mechanical, but that threshold has been passed. Thanks to technology, our global economy, and a shift away from manufacturing, Companies, too, are increasingly able to locate wherever they want. This is Google's facility in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'll tell you the story behind this. My friend and former governor of Michigan, Jennifer Granholm, was seeking to get Google to locate a major facility in Michigan. And she particularly wanted to come to either Detroit or Flint, where the unemployment was the highest. They did announce that they were moving to Michigan. Fortunately for her, they announced 2 weeks before her re-election, which she went on to win. But they decided they were going to Ann Arbor and not to Flint or not to Detroit. And about 1,000 jobs here. The average salary is about $68,000. And when they were asked, why did they go here instead of where the governor wanted them, they said, we must be able to recruit the shiny brights coming out of college. They will move to Ann Arbor because everyone knows about Ann Arbor. They were not as likely to move to Detroit. Now that tells you right then and there a huge story about what is going on with this decision process. And really, who can blame Google? If a company can locate anywhere, why would it not choose to locate in a place where its employees can be healthy, happy, and productive, and inclined to stay in that community? A lot of this really comes down to choice. About 18 months, 2 years ago, I was speaking in Houston, Texas, and during that speech, it was for the American Council of Chamber of Commerce Executives, a business group. And at dinner the night before, one young lady who was an executive of one of the chambers there looked at me and said, so you're the guy coming from the East Coast going to tell us how to use our land, is that right? I told her, I said, no ma'am, I said, I'm not. I'm going to tell you what the choices are, and then you decide what you want to do with your businesses and your land. And I laid out the choices. I told him, I said, listen, every indication, notwithstanding the current up and down price of gasoline, is that we're going to be at least $7 and maybe even as much as $10 per gallon by the end of the decade. And it's not just me, it's Wall Street Journal, certainly not a bastion of liberalism, and it's the president of Exxon. And it's really not about what we're doing, it's about the immense demand coming from China and India and other countries. So I asked the business people there, I said, what happens to your businesses and your employees when gas hits $7, $8 a gallon? And the way I see it, I think you've got three choices. Choice number one is they can't get to work regularly and productivity goes down. Choice number two is they get to work, but they spend all of their disposable income, and because we're a consumer-oriented economy, we go back into recession. Or choice number three, they get to work, but they demand higher wages to cover these great costs, and we go into a period of inflation. And so I asked them, I said, which do you really want? Low productivity, recession, or inflation? I looked right at that woman that had talked to me about that. And then, you know, they're sitting there like, and then I said, but there are some other choices. The other choices are change the way we develop so that jobs and housing and retail are closer together, create walkable communities, create transit-oriented communities, extend transit options throughout the area. Now, if you do that, the neighborhoods, the cities, the communities that do that will be not only prepared, but they will be even more competitive in the future when gas hits this price. Companies across the nation are choosing to move to locations that are walkable, that offer a high quality of life, because that's where their talent is. And I must emphasize, it's not just Google. Zappos, for example, is moving their corporate headquarters into the old City Hall in downtown Las Vegas. Sara Lee's Hillshire Brands recently moved its 600 employees and contractors from a gleaming, glassy corporate headquarters in Downers Grove, complete with fountains and man-made lakes, into a refurbished industrial building in one of the noisiest sections of Chicago's West Loop. And in Raleigh, Citrix, a technology company, is in the process of moving their headquarters to downtown, where they're building an ultra-modern 130,000 square foot office space that will retain the classic urban style of the original warehouse environment, and the new Boston office for eBay's PayPal business will move more than just a staff. They are providing room and space for at least 5 local startup companies as well. Now, I cover these because all of those popped out in the various business papers in just about a 3-month time period. This is not, an oddity. This is what is in fact occurring. Because of this demand, people from both people and businesses, cities are playing an increasingly important role in their regional economies. In short, a more livable Nashville leads to a stronger region. The good news is that in these places, the ones that are increasing demand, the ones that offer a mix of housing and retail, have public space, are walkable, and provide transit options, they make good economic sense as well. The fact of it is, these places are a good deal, not just because they are attracting people and businesses, but because growing within existing boundaries is far less of a burden on tight city budgets. I spoke earlier about the cost of sprawling development patterns. As this slide shows, building infrastructure to serve new developments on the fringe can cost the city up to 3 times more per acre than urban infill development. Not only does more dense development equate to lower infrastructure cost, it also generates more revenue per acre for the communities. In fact, multifamily housing near a city center can generate 9 times more revenue per acre than traditional large lot single family housing. Now, I think it's pretty easy to see from this economic perspective that living and working and playing in close proximity can make sense not only for your personal bank account, but for the cities as well. Now, I'm not going to go into this extraordinarily important point. If we back up to the last slide just for a second. I'm not going to go into that in more detail, but I will tell you that your next speaker is Mitch Silver, the planning director for Raleigh, North Carolina, but also the president of the American Planning Association, and he has gone into this in detail. And this is so valid that the very famous Raleigh Research Triangle is now being changed into a mixed use with residence and retail in addition to the offices that are there, because the old model no longer works in today's world. And so you'll hear a lot more from him about this. I have discussed changing demographics and changing preferences and changing economics, but indeed this is a challenging time. We must, however, take up the challenges of understanding these new trends, capitalizing on the opportunities that they present, and thinking about the future in new and strategic ways. We must evolve, rethink, and reinvent. Now, I will not pretend for a moment that smart growth or livability or sustainable development or whatever you want to call it can alone solve all of our problems. But the evidence is there that the best response to the challenges before us is pretty clear. Communities with this strong sense of place can be the ones that ultimately succeed in the future. In the new knowledge-based economy of today, according to Richard Florida, many of you are familiar with his work, particularly The Rise of the Creative Class, having places that feel like real places, that exude a sense of community, that are engaging and visually appealing, and that offer a high quality of life means everything in attracting the kinds of residents, businesses, and capital that will improve the local economy. The key is to understand the absolute certainty and predictability of these trends. And I must emphasize, and I spoke with the group yesterday, and the mayor and I had dinner last evening on this, this is not like something we could ignore. It's not like if we don't acknowledge it, it's going to go away or whatever. These are real. And either we recognize that, adjust our thinking, and maybe even reach out and capture the energy that comes out of these trends. And capture that energy working together as a community and as a region to create a plan to shape how these trends can play out on the ground. These trends will have an impact on the development, whether we want them to or not. If we allow inescapable growth to occur in a haphazard fashion, the impacts on the local economies, the home values, the transportation choices, and the strength of the communities will be profound and far-reaching, negatively impacting generations to come. Luckily for all of you, Nashville is well positioned to be successful in this changing world. You are attracting and creating the talent that grows and draws business investment. This city has tremendous assets and anchor institutions, the music and healthcare industries, educational institutions, and a strong entrepreneurial environment that the city can use to grow and to leverage. But these trends mean that Nashville has to continue to focus on creating the places where people want to be, because I can tell you, there are many communities all across the nation and indeed all around the world hoping to compete with you for the creative, talented people and businesses that will follow them. Nashville has made great strides, and there are many things about which you should be excited. The redevelopment of the riverfront, the resurgence of the older communities, the investment in transportation, from bike lanes to the planned bus rapid transit, all have been important steps for the city. The BRT, the bus rapid transit, is particularly exciting. Not only will it provide a much-needed transportation option, but it can also offer great potential to bring about additional real estate and community investment. This infill redevelopment will benefit the city and the region for decades to come. But the city has much more to do, and that's why your presence here today is so very important. Through the collective voices of the city and the region, I believe that you will find a way to an even better and even stronger and even more vibrant 21st century American city. I applaud the work that Nashville is beginning through the NashvilleNext. Mr. Mayor, I applaud you and your leadership for what you are doing, and Rick Bernhardt, the hard work and the dedication for the next 2 years. Most importantly, though, I applaud you, the citizens, for being here on a nice Saturday morning, for having the enthusiasm and the interest you do. With a little bit of hard work and dedication on which this country was founded, we can get started today on shaping a better world, not only for our community, but for the entire country. Thank you so very much for inviting me to be here today.
And we'd like to thank Governor Glendening from the great state of Maryland. That's my home state, so I have to give it an extra shout out. You've given us a whole lot to think about as we plan for our future. Now, our next speaker really needs no introduction. He's demonstrated that he knows a thing or two about how to transform a vision and make it a reality. Karl Dean is Nashville's mayor. Improving schools, making our neighborhoods safer, and bringing better jobs to Nashville are all some of his top priorities. He's the mayor who asked us to dust off our sneakers and get healthy and join him in walking 100 miles. Now, he's here to share his vision for the future. I'm pleased to welcome Mayor Karl Dean.
Well, thank you all for being here, and good afternoon, I guess. I just came from Shelby Bottoms, where we were doing a walk with Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is really an incredible organization. And the purpose of the walk, of course, is to encourage people in Nashville to be healthier. One of the challenges that we face, and I think it is part of planning for the future, is that as a state and as a city, we need to make ourselves healthier. We need to eat better, we need to exercise more, and the message I delivered to the great mentors with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, but also to the kids who were there, is that it's important to exercise every day, and that the city is blessed with a whole series of parks and greenways and community centers that are free and there's plenty of areas for us to take advantage of that and to get the exercise that we need. I am thrilled to be here today, and I want to say thank you publicly to Governor Glendening for visiting our city and for offering an informative presentation, and for his thoughtfulness about the future of our city. And also a word of thanks to Rick Bernhardt, the NashvilleNext team, and the Metro Planning Department for all they do on a regular basis, but what they're doing specifically right now through this exercise to make Nashville's future even better. As we all know, Nashville is a vibrant and it's a growing city. We've had, I think, a very good past few months in terms of national publicity. Early in January, the New York Times, of course, came out with an article saying that Nashville is the new IT city, which is a good thing to be. Yesterday, I was at the Vanderbilt Law School for a Metro 50 celebration, our 50th anniversary as metropolitan government, and we had invited, or Vanderbilt Law School actually invited a professor from the University of Virginia and a professor from the University of Texas to speak about local government. And when I was doing my introduction, I talked about the New York Times article and us being the IT city, not thinking that we had the former IT city there in Austin. And so when the professor from Austin got up, she said, well, I don't necessarily share the enthusiasm of your mayor about Nashville being the IT city, since we were the IT city. My advice is let's just enjoy it while we have it. It's a good thing. But the one that really got me was right around New Year's, Condé Nast, the travel magazine, came out with an article where they said there are 5 cities that you have to visit in 2013. You have to visit. And this is 5 cities in the world. And those cities are Seoul, South Korea, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, Toronto, Ontario, New Orleans, and Nashville. And look, I know what some of you are thinking. You're sitting there thinking, man, I don't really know how Toronto and Amsterdam made that list. I don't know how they did, but the reason we did, I think, is that we're a city that I think gets the priorities that are important to make a city grow and to make a city grow in a good way. And those are the priorities of paying attention to public education, public safety, and economic development. And one of the things that I want to keep reminding people as we get a series of good news and good rankings is that when I go to bed at night or when I wake up in the middle of the night, I'm not thinking about what the New York Times said. I'm not thinking about what Condé Nast said about our city. What I'm thinking about is schools. What I'm thinking about is the safety on our streets. What I'm thinking about is creating jobs and opportunities for people. And that if we continue to stay focused on trying to improve those areas, and particularly in my mind, public education, we can't settle for underperforming our peers. We cannot settle for underperforming all the neighboring counties around us. We have got to do better. And we are so ideally positioned right now that if we're bold, if we're aggressive, if we're brave about it, we can move the needle. But it's not going to be by resting on our laurels or remaining a good, true friend to the status quo. The status quo has lots of friends, too many friends, doesn't need any more friends. The change needs the friends. I often say, one of the great things about going through a planning exercise or dreaming of the future in this city is the best thing about doing this in this city is this. And I say this all the time, and I mean this to the bottom of my heart. Nashville's best days are still ahead of us, without any question. And the issue for us is how we move into that future, how we plan for that in a thoughtful way to make sure that our future is all that it can be. Our central location, our diverse economy, the large number of universities here, the music industry, and the creative talent it attracts. For those reasons and more, businesses, individuals, and families are picking Nashville as a place they want to be. As our population continues to grow and our city and its many communities continue to develop, our challenge is to plan for that growth. We need to develop smartly and in a way that maintains and improves our quality of life. NashvilleNext embraces this concept, celebrates our diversity by seeking ideas and input from real people who care about Nashville. And through this engagement process, we can continue to build a strong and a proud community. We can't just think about what we want our city to be over the next year or even 5 years or 10 years. Now is the time to plan for the next quarter century and to set a path that ensures that our children and grandchildren will live in an even better Nashville than we have today. So I encourage all Nashvillians to share their vision for Nashville during the NashvilleNext planning process. Only by working together can we develop a future that is best for us all. So that is my challenge to you. Thank you again for all of those who put the hard work into bringing this community into the conversation, into the planning. And now we'll have a video of your Nashville neighbors ready to plan for Nashville's future. And they are in. Thank you.
I'm in because I absolutely love this city.
This is your opportunity to get your voice heard.
I want to be sure that we retain the quality of life we have here. I want to enhance it and make it better.
So it's very important that we all have to know this is the most important event in this city. So we should all get involved.
I think it's very important that our African American communities and Latino communities here in Nashville have a say-so on what's going forward in the development of the city.
This is about the next 25 years of Nashville, something that I like to think about, which is the future. How can we make Nashville the best that it can be?
Nashville has experienced a huge growth in the Hispanic community. And they really need to be part of the voice of change and the commitment to making this a great city in the future.
We want young people to graduate high school, graduate college, and assume a responsibility for how they want their community to look like.
This is the good opportunity to get involved in the beginning. This is a great opportunity to express the city we want to see 20 years, 25 years from now.
I want to preserve what makes it so unique, but still facilitate growth and using our infrastructure responsibly.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in.
So you heard Mayor Dean challenge us. He said we have to do better. And it's so great to see so many people out here on a cold Saturday morning, but this really is just the first step. Next, we're going to have a speaker series where nationally known leaders on topics like diversity and inclusion, prosperity and the environment, and the like will be coming to Nashville to share ideas about what matters to you. Now, a brochure listing the entire speaker series is available in the main conference room. And I'm pleased to say that News Channel 5 is committed to this effort and will air a portion of each of those conversations on News Channel 5 Plus. So mark your calendars for Monday, February 25th at Harambe Hall at the Scarrett Bennett campus to hear Mitch Silver discuss Changing Faces of America, the opportunities and challenges of 21st century demographics. As you heard Governor Glendening say today, that the demographics here in Nashville will change drastically in the next 25 or so years. And so we hope that you'll join us there and hear what Mitch Silver has to say about that. And we will be remiss if we don't say thank you to some folks who really made this event possible. It's the Greater Nashville Association of Realtors, Regent Homes, Southern Land, and Gresham Smith and Partners, along with News Channel 5. The Tennessean is also a media partner. Also, just a note, you guys got this card. They're asking that you fill it out and hand it to somebody before you leave. So thanks for coming. Feel free to give more input in the main conference room. You guys, this is just the beginning. As we say, it's really up to us. I'm in. I hope you are too. Thanks so much for joining us.